After a pause, she looked sad. Since my concubine came to the palace, the king seldom called me. I just wanted the king to cherish me more. When Yen Beicheng heard the words, he twisted his sword eyebrows into his temples and looked at the flowers on the street. She said that the king's head is big, princess, or for you, is it true? Of course not. Mo Shanghua's mouth was crisp and clear. In the middle of the conversation, the front of the conversation suddenly changed. However, since she said that, she must be prepared. You might as well take it out to have a look, lest there is too little evidence to see. In this way, Xueji was laughing at her. She felt a little annoyed in her heart, but she didn't show it on her face. She said, "My concubine just said that the princess often stabbed me with a hairpin when she was angry. This hairpin was unintentionally left when the princess quietly came to command me at night a few days ago. Please have a look at it." She took out a simple silver hairpin without any pendant from her sleeve and spoke eloquently. Smart little CC this quickly came forward to take the hairpin, and submitted to Yen Beicheng. Yen Beicheng took the hairpin and looked at it. Then he raised his eyes and looked at it in the simple bun on the street. His brow wrinkled more tightly. "Princess, I remember, it seems that it's really your hairpin." When Yen Zhenxuan heard the speech, he felt tight in his heart and said, "Ordinary women often lose their hair. If the princess loses a hairpin carelessly, what's so strange? According to this hall, it's not enough as evidence." "It makes sense." Yen Beicheng nodded and threw the hairpin aside. "If you can take out the evidence, I will make the decision for you." "Of course." Xueji bit her lip, and a certain amount of self-confidence came out of her eyes. Since the princess came to the mansion, she first went crazy, then drove away the housekeeper and punished Pingji. Now she has committed the second master of the Wu family. All in all, she has made many people dissatisfied in the mansion, including many people outside the city. The flowers on the street picked the corners of their lips, and there was a certain irony and fearlessness between their eyebrows and eyes. "No matter what's right or wrong, I did it on purpose. What's the matter with the people in the city? It's not that she is too self-centered, but that she always thinks that no matter what she does, it's all her business, and other people are not qualified to talk about it." However, in Xueji's eyes, it is extremely arrogant. The princess is the hostess of Yuzhou. What you say and do is related to the whole palace and the whole face of Yuzhou. How can it be your own business? Xueji turned her eyes slightly and continued, "Now, the people think that the princess is immoral and unworthy of being the princess of Yuzhou, so they sign the letter of Wanmin and ask the prince to have a look at it. However, they are unable to deliver it. There is a distant uncle of my maid and concubine who is looking for a job in the royal palace. The letter of Wanmin is in the hands of my maid and concubine's uncle. However, my uncle is afraid that he might leak the news and make the princess want to kill him. The book was given to my maid. Lord, even if you don't want to listen to your maidservant and concubine, you have to listen to thousands of people." The flower eyes on the street just dyed some Sioux color. It's like knowing Xueji for the first time. I look at Xueji seriously. Yen Zhenxuan is also the same shock. Heart seems to follow a tight, busy asked, "What do you say, Wanmin book?" Xueji pondered for a while, then said, "It's the people, but it's not too much to say it's 1,000 people. But in order to prevent the Wanmin book from being leaked, I simply asked Nanji elder sister to take care of it for me. The prince can invite her to take care of the Wanmin book for the time being." Nanhe was also involved. Yen Beicheng's eyes suddenly passed a heavy color, but his face was blank. 13 younger brother, what is the book of the people? Yen Zhenxuan was quite nervous at the moment, but he didn't show any impatience when he heard Yen Beicheng's words. When Sheng explained, "In short, it's the common wish of millions of people. With this, we should focus on small things, even our father and emperor." Having said that, it is extremely difficult to get a book of the people's. Everyone's thoughts are different. It's very difficult to connect others with their own. It is also a reflection of the long-cherished wish of many people, and the superior can't just sit back and ignore it. Yen Beicheng nodded his head, and his eyes turned around Xueji's body. Then he said, "Go and have a look first." Xueji smelled speech, busily lift eyes to see to own intimate maid, you and the person that the Lord sends go together. I remember the south side imperial concubine seems to be received in the mattress interlayer between, should not be very difficult to find, quickly go back. Yes, I'm sure I'll bring up some concubines from the south. See Snow G Mao Light Sean, seem to have what meaning to want to express, in the heart immediately understand come over. Finish saying, that maidservant then followed the small sea that Yen North City sends to go together. When Nan he saw the maid, his eyebrows could not help jumping. If you don't wait on your wife, how can you come to me? And this one, shouldn't you also serve the Lord? The servant girl blessed the south crane and said, side concubine, it's the prince who asked the servant girl to accompany her to pick up the book of the people. My wife said, I remember you took it in the interlayer of the quilt last time. Please take it yourself quickly. Can't you've got it. It seems that she doesn't trust her at all. She wants to take her into the water when things fail. At the thought of this, she was very angry, but she couldn't show any anger at the moment, so she nodded, got up and went around the screen to the bedside. She touched the sheet with her hands, then lifted the sheet. She saw that there was something like a memorial under the intrusion. Then she took it out and went out to smile at the maid. The book of the people is here. Let's go. As he followed the servant girl to the hall, Nanhe scolded Shueji for her cunning and her escape strategy later. When Nanha took Wanmin's book, Shueji's nervousness gradually faded away, her eyes relaxed a little, and her words became more and more calm. Prince, my concubine will put these important things in the place of Nanbian imperial concubine. First, Nanbian imperial concubine is deeply loved by you, and she is the most important person in the government besides the royal concubine. Second, this is what Nanbian imperial concubine asks for. Fearing that Nanha would argue, she sped up and continued, Nanbian princess is usually such a gentle and dignified person. She is also very angry with the princess. Otherwise, Nanbian princess would not help her. Sister, do you think so? Speaking of this, Nanha naturally had to eat the dumb loss and knelt down. Lord, I dare not ask the princess. I just want peace in the house for a while, and I want you not to be criticized. Well said the sisters. Two people are you a word I a language of say, Pingji sharp voice then spread from outside come in, the person didn't arrive, the language first arrive. Lord. Pingji twisted her body and walked in. Her eyes first swept over Yen Zhenxuan's pretty cheek, and then fell on Yen Beiqing's face. She blessed her body and said, Lord, do you know that not only the two sisters, but also many maidservants and concubines are bullied by the princess? Then she pinched her handkerchief and began to sob. I just said a few more words to the princess a few days ago, which made the princess unhappy. The princess insisted that I was guilty of the following crimes. She was disrespectful to her and punished me. Another month ago, I was punished by the princess. You must be the master for me and thousands of people. It's the only way to abolish this poisonous woman. Yan Beiqing, some irritable, grabbed the broken hair of the forehead, impatiently scolded, all shut up, my king, listen to the head will ache to death. Pingji Si, full of tears in the eyes, played a few turns, should be forced to go back, dare not make a sound. Nanha glances at Shueji kneeling on the ground, pinches her palm, and kneels down beside her. Although he doesn't say a word, his attitude is very obvious. Seeing this, Pingji knelt down quickly. Yen Zhenxuan was weak and easy to sweat. At the moment, seeing their posture, he felt as if they were forcing Yan Beiqing to punish himself, and his palm was sticky. Brother, you have to report to your father and emperor to abolish the imperial concubine. Don't be impulsive. Otherwise, your father and emperor will blame you, and you will be in trouble. Shueji smell speech, busy way. If the emperor know the reason, certainly won't blame the Lord. At the moment, Yan Beiqing, in the state of no ordinary slouch, has already tightened his eyebrows and lips tightly, with a sad look. When others see this, they all know that he is also measuring, and they dare not speak more. The house is like an invisible funnel. Everyone is quietly waiting for the sand in the funnel to leak out and usher in the final judgment. Pooh-hoo, suddenly, there was a sneer in the quiet room, and everyone could not help looking in the direction of the sound source. See, originally all want to be forced to the end of the road of Mo Shanghua, at this moment on the face but no half-cent nervous flustered color, on the contrary added a bit of ironic smile. Is it difficult for the princess to see that the general situation has gone, and she is directly scared out of her wits? Seeing this, Pingji gently raised her lips and opened her mouth with some satisfaction. Mo Shanghua didn't even look at her, so she stepped directly in front of Nan He. Didn't you say you brought the book of the people? Now even the book of the people has not been shown. I want to judge my guilt at will. I'm afraid it's not enough to convince the public. The South Crane Mao light in the Mo upper flower face slightly one eye, the heart shoe but jumped. She always felt that it was not so simple. After all, when did Xueji put the book in? She didn't know. How could she know if it was the real book? Thinking of this, she was more and more uneasy, but now, how can she continue to hide the book? She can only slowly take out the book from her sleeve. Before handing the flowers to Mo Shang, she could not help pausing in her hands, and the light in her eyes flickered. Princess, it's better to present this to your highness, and let them decide in person. Mo Shanghua smells speech, simply straight backhand. Good, for don't let you suspect, this book is naturally Wangya read after, I read. She glanced at the little guy standing behind Yan Beiqing. He came over and quickly took the Wanmin book from Nan He and presented it to Yan Beiqing. The Wanmin book is as long as more than 10 pages of paper. Yan Beiqing alone is not enough to completely unfold it. Seeing this, the young man quickly called another young man to come over, and the two of them worked together to completely unfold the Wanmin book. I saw that the Book of Peoples, which was more than 1 meter long, was full of names written in different handwriting. Nan He felt relieved. Pingji craned her neck, and then she saw a corner of Wanmin's book, and her lips suddenly raised. Lord, this matter should be decided, right? If you don't have the heart, the emperor will make a decision. This woman doesn't deserve to be a princess. Her heart has long been on the flower hate to the extreme. She is also a concubine in her family. She can only send her concubine. This slut is also a concubine. Why can she be the concubine of her own family? Yen North City Mao color gradually sink down, Mao light over the Book of the People, fixed in the Mo Shanghua delicate cheek, for a long time did not speak. Yen Sinshuan almost stood up, thanks to Chen Kong quietly pressed him. However, the worry in his heart has not been reduced by half because of this. However, apart from this worry, there is also something in his heart hope. In fact, he wanted to get rid of the quilt in his heart. In this way he has a chance. No, she said, she is no longer Lu Chanqian. Now she is called Mo Shanghua. She is totally different from Lu Chanqian. Yen Sinshuan pinched the sleeve robe, pursed the bloody lip, and fell into the self-entanglement. But there was no panic on the side of Mo Shanghua. His eyes turned around in the house, and then he walked slowly to the side of Yan Beiqing. He pointed to the words in front of the Book of the People and read it out slowly. Yuzhou bandits are rampant, the horses are weak, the soldiers are short, the people are suffering, and the people are hard to live. Although our strength is weak, we still ask your majesty to make a decree earlier, and allow Yuzhou to recruit troops and protect us. The common people are considerate, Li Dainiu and Wang Ersan. Yan Beiqing's eyes didn't change at all, as if he had expected this matter, but he made an unbelievable appearance on his face. He blinked and looked at the direction of the flower on the street. His lips couldn't help ticking a few points. Nanha and Pingji both turn their heads and stare at Xueji, as if to ask what's the matter. However, Xueji's face was also unbelievable, and she obviously didn't know anything about it. Yen Sinshuan returned to his senses, and immediately fixed his eyes on the place where the flower had just read. He was surprised at first, but although the string in his heart was loose, he was not happy. Mo Shanghua's attention was focused on the people kneeling down. He didn't pay attention to others. He spoke quietly, Lord, you see, it's a book of the people. It's good, but it's a book of the people petitioning His Majesty. What does it have to do with me? Yan Beiqing asked people to put away the petition for the time being. Then he asked Xueji, Nanha and others, Shueji, what's the crime of deliberately setting up the princess? Shueji's face suddenly changed. She pinched the palm of her hand and calmed her mind. She said, "My lord, I must have been cheated. Besides, is it an indisputable fact that the princess abused me? Including the previous death of Yunji, it's not an accident. In fact, the princess gave me the poison powder before she left in order to settle the trouble of Yunji when I didn't comply with the poison. She repeatedly threatened my parents' lives." With that, she quickly took out a small bag of poison powder from her sleeve. This is what was used before. The second master of the Wu family died in the hands of the princess, which should be the poison. The lord can invite the doctor to have a look. Xiao Si presented the small package of poison. Yan Beicheng was afraid of being poisoned, so he just picked up a corner and looked at it at will. Yan Zhenxuan also gathered to have a look. The Mao light tiny turn, Emperor elder brother, still invite the doctor to come over to have a look. Don't bother. Mo Shanghua interrupts him, without looking at the powder bag, and says, "Qin Lin, please come up to Shueji's parents." The word, parents, was particularly bitten by her, which had special meaning. Qinya outside the door answered and waited for a while before leading two middle-aged couples in common clothes. The middle-aged couple had obviously never seen the world. As soon as they came in and saw so many well-dressed dignitaries, they were afraid to say more. They just knelt down and didn't know whether they were talking to Yan Beicheng or Yan Zhenxuan. Since the incident of Yunji, I have been suspicious of Shueji. I sent someone to investigate Shueji's life experience. I learned that her parents are ordinary people in Wujuan, and there are 4 younger brothers at home. Because life is really hard, I entrusted her distant uncle and sent her to the government as a concubine. After that, Shueji never contacted her parents again. In the middle, she suddenly thought of something and stretched out her hand to Qin Lin. Qin Lin quickly took out 2 small wooden cards and handed them to Mo Shanghua. She borrowed the wooden card and put it in front of Yan Beicheng, saying, "This is their household card, which can fully prove their identity." "What is it to do?" "Are you here to meet someone?" Yan Beicheng glanced at the household post in front of his desk and asked in a casual voice. "Exactly." "This is a joke, but think of..." Mo Shanghua instead solemnly nodded his head, raised his finger to the Snow Ji kneeling on the ground. "2, please see, this is your daughter in the end. 2 people submissive should be, this just will hate can't bury in the ground of head up, stare at Snow Ji to see." After a long time, the woman suddenly called out, surprised and indignant, "No, no, no, my daughter works with me all the year round. How can she be a good-looking woman? Ah, no, no, she's not my daughter. What about my daughter?" That old man sees this. Complexion is also particularly at a loss. This is how to return a responsibility after all, my daughter? Don't worry. The princess will give you justice later. Follow me first. Seeing this, Qin Lin quickly came forward to appease them and help them down. At the moment, Shueji's face is completely pale, just. She could not help trying to struggle for a while and said, The food in the palace is much better than the environment I used to live in. It's not strange that I've been raised a little whiter. Moreover, it's inevitable that my parents will be dazed when they are old. You've been in the palace for less than a year, and you've been weak and out of favor all the time. When I first entered the palace, you didn't come to see me because of illness. I'm curious. How can you have time to take care of yourself if you can't get well? What's more, your position, where can you get the white and pure medicine that can be raised quickly? The corner of the lips of the flowers on the street is hooked, and the eyebrows are dyed with a kind of light color. What's more puzzling is that the woman just said that her daughter works with her all the year round. I have asked her in private that her daughter is healthy and won't get sick several times a year. Now how can she become so delicate as soon as she enters the government? The flowers on the street closed their eyes and made up another sentence. Shueji's eyes flickered for a while, and her hands were very flustered. She grabbed her robes, but she was still calm. My hometown used to be in Wujuan, far away from Yuzhou City. When she first came here, she was not acclimatized. Later, She was very emotional, so she was ill for a long time. After a pause, her eyes flashed and she said, "There are so many women in the house, or someone is afraid that I will be spoiled by the Lord, so it's better to start first and deliberately frame me. Think about it, you don't see the coffin, you don't cry." Emo Shanghua smell speech, turn Mao to see to the side of Qin Lin, "Will Snow Ji in the House of Medical Records?" "Yes." Qin Lin answered, then took out a pamphlet in his chest, raised his hands over his head, and presented it to Yan Beiqing. To the prince, the princess had expected that, so she specially sent a slave to transfer Mrs. Shue's medical records. From her entering the government to now, all the medical records and pathology are here. Yan Beiqing showed a little fidgety on his face. He only waved to let Emo Shanghua down, but he didn't look at it. Yan Zhenxuan didn't look at it. Her eyes fell on Emo Shanghua, but she didn't look at him. She said, "It's clearly recorded in the medical record that you were not acclimatized at the beginning, but after a few days of recuperation, you will be almost cured. But in the days after that, you will have a minor illness in 3 days and a serious illness in 5 days. You will suffer from wind and cold or lose your body, and you will only be cured in the house. I think it's a fake you've made to hide people's eyes and ears." "Princess," Shueji's mind suddenly changed and she cried out, "I'm just confused for a moment, so I came to the Lord to tell you, but you don't need to do this. I'll kill you." The maid and concubine are willing to apologize to the princess, so she will stay in the hospital from now on. Without taking a step, I hope the princess will forgive her and her parents. Then he bent over and knocked his forehead heavily on the ground. You can't change the evidence in a few words. The temperature of the flour noodles on the street dropped down, and his voice was cold. "Please judge." "Wang." "Lord." Shueji just opened her mouth. Nanha suddenly opened his mouth and knelt to the front. "This man pretends to be a concubine in the palace and has been in the palace for such a long time. It must be a fine work sent by other countries. This move is so cruel, sinister, and malicious. You'd better make a decision early. As for the concubines, they are so stupid that they are easily provoked and willing to be punished." So although it's far-fetched, Nanha is absolutely confident that Yan Beiqing will never do anything to her. After all, when it's time to use her chess piece, it can be used naturally. Pingji originally came here to fall into the well. She didn't know what the situation was. Now she saw that Nanha turned his back and pinched his sweating palm. She said, "I'm also biased. I've been tricked by this man. I almost became an accomplice to the princess. I hope the king will punish me at the same time." That said, but in the eyes, apart from a little flustered and timid, where there is half sincerity. Shueji can't help looking at them and gritting her teeth. The 2 elder sisters said, "So, don't they put me in a place of injustice? Lord, I'm wronged. You must find out the truth and make decisions for me." At present, there are all kinds of human and material evidence, and it is useless for Shueji to deny it. Therefore, Emo Shanghua only glances at the dying people and has no intention to continue to speak. Yan Zhenxuan's Mao Guang turns around on Emo Shanghua's cheek. Seeing that her face is light, she can't see any emotional ups and downs. Her heart suddenly becomes transparent, and the Mao Guang can't help getting more and more complicated. "Brother." When he was here, he couldn't help. In other words, he didn't need help at all. He simply stood up and said, "I don't feel well, so I won't be accompanied by dinner. Since I'm not feeling well, I'm going to have a good rest. Come and send my brother back." Yan Beiqing nodded at random and agreed. Yan Zhenxuan nodded slightly and then walked away. When he passed in front of Emo Shanghua subconsciously avoided. His eyes suddenly coagulated on her for a few minutes. After a long time, he tried to suppress the emotion in his heart, closed his eyes, turned and walked out. Although Emo Shanghua didn't lift her eyes, she deeply felt Yan Zhenxuan's hot eyes, but she didn't look sideways. She only felt the special embarrassment in her heart. Yan Zhenxuan's mind, she can roughly guess a few points, but she is not the original owner. Such feelings fall on her body, will only make her uncomfortable and feel guilty. Yan Beiqing glanced at the flower's cheek, But for a moment he looked away and said, "Since it's made by other countries, it's natural that we can't tolerate it. Come and put Shueji in the dungeon." As for the South Imperial concubine and Pingji, at this point he felt his chin and thought hard for a long time. Then he said, "What's that word called?" Move. Gossip. See Yan Beiqing already in the disposal of this matter, Mo Shanghua this just not slow mouth prompt. Oh yes, gossiping. Yan Beiqing patted himself on the head, and then, as if he found himself embarrassed, he covered his lips and coughed softly. Well, they were gossiping and echoing, so they were punished for half a year. Kneeling below, the two people have not yet had time to relax. The flowers on the street will not smile, and added, "Lord, Pingji's month as early as the previous few mistakes, then buckle all." Pingji has not put down the gas immediately is a mention, life suffocated in the throat, face ugly to the extreme. But Yan Beiqing just didn't care about it and said, "Since that's the case, I'll take her next year's one. If it's really not good, I'll try to make it." This time, Pingji almost cried out. Previously, she had been designed by Mo Shanghua and sent her a large number of valuable medicinal materials. Her little treasury had no money left, and there had been no monthly rules. That is to say, she didn't have to worry about food and drink in the house, but she didn't have spare money, so how could she live? "My lord, I don't agree with you. Think of here." Shi Mao Guang can't help but vent a bit of resentment, hate of a glance at Mo Shanghua, and then looked at the side of Nanji. If the maid concubine want to use the things in the hospital to arrive, that South Side Imperial concubine? The crime of her instigation is much heavier than that of her maidservant and concubine. If you don't punish her severely, the whole family will not accept it. Mo Shanghua knew the identity of Nanhe early, but she only realized that Yan Beiqing would never punish Nanhe severely and would certainly save the chess piece. Knowing this, she simply opened her mouth for Yan Beiqing, but naturally she would not be a good person in vain. Nanbian Imperial concubine has always been modest and docile, but you are arrogant, disrespectful everywhere, which is different from you. Mo Shanghua looked down at her and glanced at her contemptuously. If you say one more thing, you can save it for the king's residence for public use in the next few years. Pingji Hate glanced at the flower on the road, and couldn't help turning her eyes to gouge out the South Imperial concubine. At present, the South Crane has no time to take care of himself. Naturally, he is not in the mood to pay attention to Pingji. Yan Beiqing straightened his clothes, got up and stretched out. "I'm going back to have dinner. I'm all gone." After that he walked away. The South Crane also gets up to leave, but it is Pingji. The eel stands in the hall resentfully, and his eyes are as poisonous as the poison. He stares at the flower on the street who is about to leave. The flower on the street, however, seemed to be unable to see her resentful eyes. She crossed her and went back to her own hospital. She didn't know how many times she looked at Pingji's look. If she cared about it because of one look, she would have died of anger. When she came back to the courtyard, it was dark and the dinner was ready. As soon as she came back, she quickly put the meals on the table one by one. Today, Mo Shanghua stayed outside for a long time, but she didn't have any food. She was really hungry, so she just sat at the table after cleaning her hands. Qin Lin, who was escorting Shueji, entered the house at this time. His brow was frowning and his face was not very good. "Princess," the slave just followed Shueji to the dungeon and found something. Mo Shanghua slowly sent a spoonful of soup to his mouth, but he didn't lift his head and said, "But what happened to the man I caught outside the city a few days ago?" "The two men died last night. The hateful guards were afraid of provoking the anger of the prince and princess. They didn't dare to report to the police." Qin Lin nodded, with a look of indignation on his face. "However, at least now he has caught the behind the scenes. I think those assassins are useless." "Do you really think Shueji is behind the scenes?" Mo Shanghua just raised her eyes and took a look at Qin Lin. Qin Lin's brows suddenly wrinkled more tightly, and the color of confusion could be seen between his brows. He found Shueji's parents well, but he remembers that before that, Mo Shanghua talked to them alone. Today's story, including the fact that Xueji's identity has been torn down. All he thinks is that it's the arrangement of Moshenghua. Xueji is not such a serious work of other countries. Now that Moshenghua says that, he is really confused. Moshenghua saw this. She didn't put down her chopsticks and swallowed the food in her mouth. She just explained, Xueji was originally made by other countries. She and the assassins all have masters behind the scenes. This time, she just wanted to pull me down and get my private seal so that she could act in the future. Then, she was afraid that she would be close to the Lord. If she gets in touch with Yan Beiqing and gets Yan Beiqing's private seal, it will be a disaster. Qin Lin was surprised. He habitually raised his hand and touched the back of his head. Really, I didn't expect that it was true. What should I do with the princess, the masterpiece of other countries? With that, he took his hand as a knife and made a stroke on his neck. Should it be? Moshenghua nodded gently, then shook her head again. It must be impossible to live, but before that, we have to pry out the behind-the-scenes master from her mouth. I'm curious about which country's work is so important and bright that it has arrived at the palace. Qin Lin felt his head more frequently, but the princess, the people she had caught were very hard. They were either dead or punished and refused to speak. Moshenghua put a bowl and chopsticks, took a handkerchief to wipe the corner of her lips and said, I felt for her, and looked at her walking figure. She doesn't know martial arts. Her fingers are thin and soft, so she shouldn't really suffer. I think she can't bear punishment at all. It's not impossible to pry out from her. You wait and get ready, and I'll go and have a look. Qin Lin nodded knowingly and was about to go down. After 2 steps, he suddenly turned around and went back to Moshenghua. He looked around her and said, Princess, I don't know why Qinya hasn't come back yet. I sent her to work outside the government. She should be back soon. Moshenghua saw that he was worried and said, Don't worry. Qin Lin nodded, a little relieved, and turned to go out. Moshenghua thought about it, but it's okay to go at this time. It's too late for fear of being suspected, so she walked out. Before she got to the gate of the courtyard, she saw Qin Lin standing alone at a corner. Because she was facing her back, she didn't know what he was doing. When he got close to him, he found that Qin Lin, who was always honest, was hiding here and secretly listening to the 2 maidservants. Moshenghua sees this, also can't help but erect an ear to listen to. Is Qinya really in bad luck this time? No, Madame Ping has just been punished today. It's because of the princess's affairs. How can I see her? We'll have to go around Mrs. Ping in the future. Otherwise, we'll end up like her. What's going on? Moshenghua came late. After listening to the second part, he quickly pulled Qin Lin in front of him. Qin Lin was startled. He stepped back a few steps. Then he turned around and startled the 2 maidservants who were talking. He saw that he was running away with his head down. Qin Lin didn't care about the 2 maidservants. When he came back to see that they were flowers on the street, he knelt down and said, Princess, I just heard them say that I met Mrs. Ping when Qinya entered the mansion and was stopped. Now I don't know what the situation is. Please go and save her. Moshenghua Mao in the moment across the previous Pingji that resentful eyes, complexion suddenly a coagulation, go. While she was talking, she had already raised her foot and quickly headed out of the hospital. Seeing this, Qin Lin got up and trotted to catch up. At that time, Pingji was standing high in front of Qinya. You said that you were ordered by the princess to go shopping? What about the purchases? Qinya endured the anger in her heart and tried to keep calm. I stayed with the princess outside the house for a long time today. When I came back, it was late. The princess thought at that time that I went for a trip. But when I went late, the shop was closed. Naturally, I came back in vain. Pingji sneered, obviously didn't believe her words. It's really the people around the princess, and her voice is as smart as the princess, but... Her voice suddenly turned, staring at Qinya fiercely. You don't forget, you are just a slave, the master's speech and your excuse? In my opinion, it's clear that you're going out of the house without permission. What are you doing here? If you don't catch her quickly, hit her again and drive her out of the house. What she refers to and instructs is naturally the guards at the gate, but the guards are afraid of the flowers on the street. Pingji's words have fallen for a long time, and there is no action. Pingji's face turned black. She pointed to the noses of the guards and scolded them. You dog slaves, don't you dare to listen to me? How can there be such a truth in the world? You know what a crime it is to disobey the master, Mrs. Ping. Pingji's quarrel gave Qinya a chance to breathe. She tried to think about the way she dealt with the affairs of the stranger. She felt for a token from herself and held it up to Pingji. Whether the maid is right or wrong, it's not all decided by your mouth. This is the token given by the princess before she left the house, which is enough to prove that the maid is not selfish. Are you out of the house? Pingji purplish gouged out Qinya in front of her, as if through her to see her master. Mo Shanghua General, hate face distortion, actually directly raised his hand to Qinya in the hands of the token. Token? She is very proud of drooping eyes, stroking the token, and then handed it to the maid behind her. How come my wife didn't see any token? What a bold slave, dare to deceive my wife. Qinya never thought that Pingji was so arrogant that she couldn't speak. Pingji walked around Qinya with great pride. Her hands came slowly to Qinya's hair. She grabbed her long hair behind her head and said, My lady wants you to know that you are different from me. Naturally, what I say is what I say. Qinya feels that her scalp is almost torn by Pingji, and the pain is unbearable. Her eyes are filled with big tears. She can't bear it, but because of her identity, she can't resist at all. Madam Ping, I'm a maid. I'm the one around the princess. If you dare to move me, I'm sure the princess won't let you go. For a long time, she could only endure the pain. The more Pingji listened to her, the more anger in her heart could not be extinguished. She directly left Qinya on the ground, and the witty one didn't instruct her to guard the bodyguard, so as not to blow her face. She only pointed to the maid behind her and said, You, take her back. After my wife has taught her a good lesson, I will sell her. As for where to sell, of course, only those places are worthy of being treated as such. Who let her be the person beside the slut, and happened to meet her? She was angry. Don't take her out, but also take who out? At the moment of Pingji's command, Qinya's delicate cheek turned pale, and the blood on her face faded clean. I want to see who dares to touch me. However, it wasn't long before Pingji's orders came down. Before she could carry them out, she saw the flowers on the street coming in front of the door of the palace very quickly. Even today's combed hair was blown in disorder by the breeze. The guards who originally regarded Pingji as nothing saw that the visitor was a flower on the street. They all knelt down to salute, and the maid beside her also knelt down to salute. Pingji hate glanced at the flower on the street, or had to kneel down, see the princess. Mo Shanghua doesn't pay attention to Pingji. His eyes only fall on Qinya, who is struggling to get up and kneel down. At that time, Qinya's hair was scattered, her eyes were tearful, and she looked up at the flowers in the street. Mo Shanghua came forward and helped Qinya up from the ground. She wiped the tears on her face, and her eyes gradually cooled down. Qin Lin was also very anxious when his sister was abused. He was too busy to know where to put her. Xiaoya, what's the matter with you? Is someone bullying you? Pingji stood up, some nervously pinched the handkerchief, some guilty explained, This cheap maidservant went out of the house without permission, and there is no token to go out of the house, so I intend to punish her severely. Princess, it's clear that it's Mrs. Ping who robbed the maidservant's token of leaving the house. She insists that the maidservant went out of the house without permission and wants to take the maidservant back to punish him severely and sell him out. With the flowers on the street, Qin Lin felt a lot more stable in an instant, but he thought that if he was really sold, the place where he sold she could not help tensing all over. Rao is a simple, honest man. Qin Lin, who is the only one to look forward to, can't help but blush with anger. He says angrily, Madam Ping is deliberately so deceiving people too much. Pingji quietly glanced at the look of flowers on the street, pinched her handkerchief, and tried to hold up her posture as a master. A slave dares to yell at my wife, princess. Don't you mean to connive? Mo Shanghua stares at Pingji coldly and says with no expression, what if it's connivance? Pingji, do you really think your position among the princesses is very noble? I tell you in my heart, but all the people I serve around me are more noble than you. After a pause, she stepped forward a few steps, a pair of quiet eyes seemed to coagulate endless ice cold, and it seemed to be quenched poison in general, only let people see, then the heart was cold. What are you? Pingji's face couldn't be strained for a moment. Ben's beautiful face twisted little by little and said in a sharp voice, what am I? What kind of thing are you? It's all from my belly. Where do you think you can be more noble than me? Obviously, he is also a mean person. He is used to brag with me here. Mo Shanghua seems to have heard a big joke. She gently pulls her lips and says, what if I'm a concubine? At least, I'm a princess now. You're not only from my concubine's belly, but also from the same fate in the end. Pingji's whole body couldn't help shaking. Beiqi bit her to the death, with a look of resentment to the extreme. The flower on the street seems to be invisible. The look in the eyes is calm again. She looks at the maid who doesn't dare to lift her head behind Pingji. Feeling the eyes of flowers on the street, the maidservant lowered her head, and the hand holding the token in her sleeve was full of sticky sweat, almost slipping out of her hand. Before Mo Shanghua came to her, she knelt down with a puff sound, and the token in her hand also fell to the ground. She cried out, maidservant should die, maidservant should die. Mo Shanghua doesn't pay attention to her begging for mercy. She leans down and picks up the token that falls on the ground. She takes the handkerchief and wipes the sweat on the token and hands it to Qinya again. When everyone thought that Mo Shanghua was going to give up, she suddenly said, Pingji dares to frame others with lipstick and white teeth in full view of the public. You should give an explanation. Pingji took a deep breath and said angrily, it's just a cheap maid. I just see that she doesn't like her eyes and deliberately humiliates me. So what? There are no maidservants in the world who dare to seek justice with the master. There were many servants in the palace. Her scornful words made people unhappy, especially Qinya. Now she was relieved. Her white cheeks were red with anger, but she took care of the overall situation and tried her best to endure. The flower in the street, smelling the words, slapped Pingji's cheek directly without thinking about it. Pingji's beautiful cheek suddenly showed a bright red fingerprint. You! Pingji covered her painful cheek and trembled with anger. Mo Shanghua just looked at her lightly and said, I'm the main room, you're the concubine's room. There's a difference between the noble and the humble. Naturally, you can fight at will. What can you do? The voice falls. Pingji is already angry, almost on the spot will fall back in the past. Hate can't rush to tear the face of flowers on the street, but just that slap, let her mind clear incomparable, where dare to have half of the side of the change. The flower on the street seemed to appreciate something rare. After staring at Pingji's wonderful face for a long time, the corner of her lips gently drew a slight radiance, and then she turned away. Princess, the maidservant just entered the yard, and they said that Mrs. Ping had just been taught by the princess, and went to the prince to complain. As a result, the prince only scolded her for crying in the middle of the night, which was boring, and she didn't have any pity at all. Qinya arranges her hair, which was torn by Pingji before, and opens her mouth happily. What is expected, just let her toss about. Anyway, the Lord will not see her. But the flower on the street didn't think so. She said in a warm voice, Today I'm late. I've wronged you. However, Qinya, you should remember that you are a stranger in the flower yard. No one can easily touch you. If this happens next time, you can just run away. I'll teach you some simple techniques of body protection. Before Qinya could thank him, Qin Lin began to smile, and his eyes were filled with joy. Great. As long as Xiaoya has learned Kung Fu, he won't have to be afraid of those people in the future. You have to learn too. Seeing this, Mo Shanghua added, If you don't learn, will you still need Qinya to protect you? That's it. Chinya bent her eyes with a smile and joked. If that's the case, how can you get your sister-in-law? Qin Lin felt the back of his head with embarrassment, and his dark cheek was a bit shy. He just laughed and didn't answer. A few people joke a few words, just because of Pingji and bring unhappy this just disappear. Since there is nothing else to do, Mo Shanghua goes to the dungeon again, ready to draw some words from Xueji. Only, she just arrived at the dungeon, just a little better mood suddenly sank to the bottom of the sea. The bodyguards in charge of the guard have been killed long ago, but Xueji, who should have been held here, has no trace. Mo Shanghua never thought that the person behind Xueji was so powerful. In such a short time, she received the news and quietly rescued the person. No, she should go to Yanbeiqing to discuss. So thinking, she directly let Qin Lin go back. Don't say anything. She is quietly from the window into the house of Yanbei City. However, she just jumped into the window, then fell into a warm embrace. Eyes are a pair of deep smiling eyes. In the past, I used to go to you. Why, today I'm thinking so much about you that I came to see you off. Mo Shanghua's white cheek suddenly turned red. He jumped out of his arms, stepped back a few steps, and kept a distance with him. It's clearly you, rascal. Yen North City picked eyebrow, not anxious, not slow of gather together to her side. Rogue again, how? If I'm not a rogue, how can I catch up with such a beautiful little lady? With that, he could not help but grin at the corners of his lips and soften his eyebrows. Mo Shanghua is more timid. She turns her eyes and says, I'm not here to talk about Fengyue with you, but something important. Do you know Xueji has been robbed? And all the guards were killed. Yanbei City slightly nodded, his face did not see any unexpected color. This matter I already know. You let them go on purpose? Mo Shanghua saw this and asked. The guard of the royal palace is loose, and it can't compare with the external training of the dead. This is also expected. How can I stop it in the future? Yan Beiqing leaned against the table behind him. His face was not satisfied, but in his deep eyes, the meaning was not clear. When he called himself I, he was back to the real him. But now he clearly called himself so, but he looked as if he was still the prince of the dandy in front of us. This made me confused. What does that mean? Yan Beiqing looked at her helplessly and raised his hand to her forehead. Why do you always know so thoroughly? Naturally, the less you know, the better. This person behind the scenes is far away from other countries, and you can't get in touch with him at present. The purpose of what he did is not just for you, but for me. Cash things are exposed, they will certainly stop for a while and start in another direction. After a pause, he continued, in any case, their ultimate goal is me, the kingdom of God. When you change your direction, there will be no threat to you. Why should you consider so much now? The flower on the street frowned slightly, and the color of thinking crossed in her eyes. It seems that it is true. I am narrow-minded. Just thinking about it, she saw a magnified handsome face suddenly appeared in front of her. She was just a few breaths away from her. She was stunned. What are you doing? When speaking, the neck slightly shrinks backward, with an unnatural look. When Yan Beiqing saw Mo Shanghua's appearance, he felt very comfortable. He stretched out his hand to hold Mo Shanghua's slender waist. I just want to ask you, today I didn't punish Nanhe severely. Don't you have any feelings in your heart? For example, sour or bitter? In a word, it's not very comfortable. Mo Shanghua had never been in touch with love before. At that time, he was just dull, not dull. Now he is clear about it, and he can hear his voice in a moment. What are you talking about? At this time, I can't help but push away Yanbei City, turn around and walk out. Who wants to eat your vinegar? Who said you were jealous? Yan Beiqing is not in a hurry. He slowly catches up with Mo Shanghua and takes her hand. You see, I haven't said anything yet. You think of it first. I think it's clear that you have me in your heart. That's why you are so sensitive. Mo flower full ing-run lips gently pursed, unnatural. Don't open your eyes, Silent Ink did not say. She had to admit that she did have him in her heart. If not, she would have gone away. Seeing her acquiescence, Yan Beiqing was happy. and his hand holding the flowers on the street was also tight, like holding the most precious treasure in the world. It's late now. Since I'm here today, I'd better stay here. What? The flower's thin eyebrows on the street suddenly slightly frown, return the future and refuse. Yan Beiqing seems to see her intention in general, then pounce on her to the bed. Yan Beiqing. The flowers on the street were unprepared. They only felt the sudden turn of heaven and earth in front of them, and their bodies sank. As soon as they raised their eyes, the scene in front of them changed into Yan Beiqing's enlarged face. In front of this face, the facial features are exquisite, especially the eyes are very deep. The eyes are like the endless night outside the house. In addition to the endless darkness, there is a kind of bright light, which is very dazzling. It's a pity that the birthmark on his right cheek is as scarlet as blood, which completely destroys his beautiful face. It makes people afraid to see it, let alone notice his beautiful and delicate features. Once upon a time, Emo Shanghua had never observed his face in such detail. Now they are so close to each other, and they are interlinked. She can't help but raise her hand to caress the scarlet and terrible birthmark on his cheek. It is said that because of this birthmark, he was disgusted by the emperor from the moment he was born. All the princes around him lived in the imperial palace, and grew up in Ananlele. Since he was a child, he was denounced in such a remote place, and even never entered the imperial city for so many years. However, the slightly sticky feeling between her fingers made her heart jump. Before she had time to think about it, Yan Beiqing suddenly got up again, took off her shoes and pushed her to the side of Emo Shanghua, and conveniently removed her shoes. Go to sleep. He lay flat beside Mo Shanghua, the scarlet birthmark on his cheek just facing the other side, leaving Mo Shanghua a handsome side. The flower willow eyebrows on the street frowned, and raised his hand to touch his side face. Just now that sticky touch has been lingering in her heart. She is really strange, the house is not hot, Yan Beiqing cheek just no sweat, why there is a sticky feeling. However, before he touched Yan Beiqing's cheek, he caught the hand of Emo Shanghua and turned to face her. There was a thin sweat on his full forehead. You little goblin, do you want me to put you in the right place? Emo Shanghua's face suddenly changed. She quickly pulled her hand back, turned over and got out of bed, turned her back to Yan Beiqing and said, You, take a rest yourself. Qinya may still be waiting for me. If I don't go back, she will be so sleepless tonight. With that, he fled and strode to the window, jumping out of the window like Yan Beiqing, who used to sneak into her room. Ifei. Yan Beiqing looks at Emo Shanghua's back in a hurry. He cries with heartache in his mouth. However, he doesn't have a look on his cheek. After Emo Shanghua leaves completely, his fist that he has been hiding in his sleeve is loosened and his palm is slightly red. Ma'am, you can use this hot egg to apply it. It took me a lot of effort to get it from the kitchen after seeing my face. It was cooked by me after I asked for it. Those people didn't care about the life or death of our people. The maid held 2 eggs wrapped in a handkerchief, and her face opened with anger. I've said it several times. I don't want this broken egg. Hurry up and get my yin ointment. Pingji's cheek swelled badly, and her pretty face was full of anger. When she saw the 2 still steaming eggs, her anger became heavier. Seeing this, the maidservant quickly covered the eggs in her hand. She was afraid that Pingji would be angry and smash the 2 eggs. Madam, all the good things in our hospital were compensated to the princess last time, and all the monthly cases were deducted. Now there is only 1 base left for Yuyan ointment. You can only use it once, but if you want to use it, you have to use it all the time, otherwise it will be useless. It's not that it doesn't work. Speaking, she slowly hung a bit embarrassed color on her face. Our hospital is now poor jingle ring, and there is no money to buy Yuyan cream. Pingji's face suddenly turned green. She grabbed the dresser box on the table and wanted to fall to the ground. However, one hand touched the dresser box, and his eyes caught a glimpse of the poor jewelry in it. He was angry and distressed. He took back his hand and had to pat the desk heavily to vent his anger. Where are my parents? Haven't they written yet? Like catching some straw, Pingji's eyes brightened and asked. The maid shook her head and lowered her head slightly. Girl, you are going to marry the king as your concubine. The master and the wife have said for a long time that they don't recognize your daughter. Now, even now, they don't pay any attention to you. She said this with great care. She was afraid that Pingji would take her out if she was not happy. They are really angry with me. Pingji's cheek was green and white, ugly, and her body trembled. Well, in this case, I don't recognize their parents. Now I don't even have the money to buy a bottle of Yuyango in my broken yard. That bitch made it clear that she wanted to use it to force me to death. There is a saying that money can make the ghost push the mill, but now she is poor. She has no extra money except for living on the daily food in the house. How can she get a foothold in the house? Think of here, Pingji, two hands can't help but tightly clench, hate eyes red. Bitch, I won't let you go. Now, without the favor of the Lord and the money to live on, she has fallen to this point. It's the slut who has done her harm. When she is in power, she must have skinned her. However, how can we gain power? As if suddenly thought of something, her eyes suddenly a bright, lips gently hook a radiant. Bitch, don't think I must take you, have no way. Look at it, as long as I got the power, there are ways to deal with you. At this point, she seems to have no anger in her heart. She took the eggs from her maid's hand, wrapped them in a handkerchief, and gently applied them on her swollen cheek, showing her teeth in pain. Originally, the swelling injury was not too serious. After 2 days, Pingji couldn't wait to dress herself up again from head to toe. Then she asked her maid to find out the news and wandered in a pavilion in the garden of the palace. After waiting for half an hour or so, Yen Zhenchuan turned out slowly from behind the pavilion in front of him, surrounded by a crowd of attendants. Looking at Yen Zhenchuan, who has a handsome face and gentle eyebrows, Pingji's heart starts to ripple. She stirs her handkerchief and walks forward gracefully. I have seen your highness. Yen Zhenchuan looked at Pingji, who was standing in front of him. He was still so gentle and peaceful. However, he was as gentle as jade. Facing a vicious woman who had only seen her once, he just nodded his head. Then he bypassed her and continued to walk forward. Seeing this, Pingji quickly stopped Yen Zhenchuan. Your highness, I have something to say to you. Yen Zhenchuan side eyes to see Pingji, her heart slightly happy. A few steps forward, the distance between the two people closer, attracted Yen Zhenchuan cannot help but back a few steps. Seeing this, Pingji showed some innocent color on her face. Your highness, I know you can't live without people, but it's really important. Yesterday, Yen Zhenchuan saw Pingji's face. He knew what kind of person she was, and naturally doubted. When he thought about yesterday, he could not help thinking about the flowers in the street, but he did not avoid them. Please tell me quickly, madam. You and I are embarrassed after all, so it's against the rules. Pingji sees this. The eye-tail stirs up a bit of potential in the color that must get, walked a few steps forward again. This time, Yen Zhenchuan did not escape. However, no one thought that Pingji had just stepped forward 2 steps, and her feet seemed to trip over something. With a cry of surprise, she fell into Yen Zhenchuan's arms. At the moment of this change, everyone did not expect that even Yen Zhenchuan had no mental preparation. Subconsciously, he raised his hand to catch Pingji. However, he didn't know whether Pingji was too heavy or not. He just grabbed Pingji's wrist and wanted to support it, but she suddenly overthrew him to the ground. Your highness! Yen Zhenchuan's body is how precious. Behind a group of people see this, busy all flustered god, all hands and feet will come forward to help. Your highness! Yen Zhenchuan's body is how precious. Behind a group of people see this, busy all flustered god, all hands and feet will come forward to help. Pingji lies on Yen Zhenchuan's chest, and her clothes don't know why. Because of this accident, she spreads a lot. The scenery on her chest is clear. She doesn't rush to tidy it up. Instead, she just grabs Yen Zhenchuan's skirt and looks frightened. This, I really don't want to be a man. With that, tears rolled down her cheeks full of powder. However, she only focused on acting, but did not notice that Yen Zhenchuan, who had been put under her body as a human flesh cushion, was getting pale with a kind of morbid white cheek, and her hands on the ground seemed to be bruised, breaking a thin layer and oozing a layer of blood. Chen Kong saw that Pingji didn't plan to get up. He pulled Pingji down and threw her aside without any pity. He stepped forward to help Yen Zhenchuan. "Your Highness, what's the matter with you? But what's the matter with you?" Yen Zhenchuan couldn't take care of the wound on his back. He just covered his chest and nodded with a pale face. Pingji noticed Yen Zhenchuan's pale face and saw that he had a wound on his hand. She was so flustered that she rushed forward and covered Yen Zhenchuan's wound with a handkerchief. She pretended to tie it on him. "Your Highness, yes, it's a maid, isn't it? How's your body? Is there anything wrong with it?" Unexpectedly, it's okay if she doesn't fasten her kerchief. Now, Yen Zhenchuan's thick eyebrows suddenly frowned tightly. There's a little pain in her eyebrows, and the blood color of her lips immediately fades away. Seeing this, Chen Kong immediately locked his eyes on the handkerchief. He quickly pulled off the handkerchief and yelled, "Come on, pass on the imperial doctor." Pingji then remembered what she had done on the handkerchief. Her face turned white and she sat down on the ground. Looking at the group of people in front of her, her voice echoed like a bell. "It's over. It's really over." In her heart, she was lamenting for herself, but her eyes suddenly came to the corner at the end of the crossroad. On the plaque hanging in front of a courtyard, the word Wu Yuan was very conspicuous. Her mind quickly turned. There was a lot of activity here, which soon attracted the attention of the dockyard. Not long after, she saw Mo Shanghua rushing out with people to check. Pingji saw that, while Mo Shanghua was not here, she grabbed the handkerchief on the ground and ran away. However, instead of escaping to the courtyard where she lived, she turned around the gate and sneaked into the courtyard from the corner gate behind. "What's the matter?" Looking at Yen Zhenchuan, who was surrounded by the imperial doctors in front of him, he quickly pulled a little guy and asked. Seeing this, the young man said quickly, "I don't know if I'm going back to the princess, but it seems that His Royal Highness's stubborn illness has broken out again, and the imperial doctors are watching." Mo Shanghua looked at Yen Zhenchuan's pale face. Lu Mei suddenly frowned tightly. She stepped forward and said in a loud voice, "This is not a place to see a doctor. In my opinion, it's better to take your highness back first and treat him well. If the wind blows here all the time, I'm afraid it's easier to aggravate your highness's stubborn illness." One of the royal doctors, hearing the words, immediately nodded. "That's reasonable. Hurry up, ask someone to find a stretcher." "Qin Lin, you take them to the dockyard to carry a soft shelf and bring some people to help." Thinking that the people who followed them were not from the palace and were not familiar with the palace, Missouri Shanghua called Qin Lin to come. "By the way, take my medicine bag too. Look at Yen Zhenchuan's situation, I'm afraid it's not very good. Just in case, she'd better prepare in advance." Qinya was going to call Qin Lin, but as soon as she turned her head, she saw that Qin Lin had already gone. She said, "Princess, the medicine bag is in your room. It's inconvenient for my brother to go. I'd better go and get it." "You go, you have to go and come back quickly." Flowers on the road nodded slightly. At that time, Pingji had just entered the dockyard through the corner gate, when she found that most of the people in the dockyard were instructed by Qin Lin to work for Yen Zhenchuan, and Qinya was the only maid that could serve in the dockyard on weekdays. Therefore, except for a few rough servants, the dockyard was almost empty, which naturally gave Pingji a chance to take advantage of. Her hands were hidden in her sleeves, her fists clenched, and she didn't know what she was holding. Her face was slightly nervous. She was very careful to avoid the maid who was washing clothes in the backyard, and sneaked into the main room where Mo Shanghua lived. It's the first time for her to sneak into the room of Mo Shanghua. The porcelain bottles in her palm are wrapped in a thin layer of sweat because of her tension. As if she is going to get out of her hands at any time, she quickly pinches again, lightens her steps, tries not to make the slightest sound, and slowly walks towards the bedroom. When she arrived at the bedside of Mo Shanghua, she stopped and held the small porcelain vase in her hand. She was nervous and resentful. "Mo Shanghua, I didn't expect that, but since it has happened, you can die with me." With that, She picked up the embroidered pillow on the bed and put the porcelain bottle directly under the pillow. Just want to take back in a hurry just now with Yen Zhenchuan bloodstain of Pizzi together into them. Her eyes flashed and flashed. Can't help but pinch Pizzi, murmur to oneself. No, I can't die. Wanna die also can only be that bitch himself to go to hell. Thinking of this, she was busy thinking about it again, and then bent over to get the kerchief back again. Under this bending, her eyes would flash. Between her fingers, under the satin-embroidered pillow, except for the two objects she had just put in, a corner of paper appeared. Pingji jumped in her heart and quickly pulled out the paper and opened it to check. After seeing it, her face suddenly changed, and her nervousness suddenly disappeared without a trace. A very vicious smile rose from the corner of her lips. Flowers on the street, this time, I think you are immortal and dying. Then, fearing that someone might come in at this time, she quickly folded the paper in her hand and put it in her inner garment. She took out the porcelain vase under the pillow. After the pillow was restored to its original state, she wanted to leave. Just after taking 2 steps, she turned her eyes and stopped. She put the vase into the potted plant in the house and left. Just arrived at the door, the future has to go out, then head-on ran into the footsteps of Qinya in a hurry. The two almost ran into each other. Mrs. Ping. Qinya stepped back 2 steps, waiting to see the comber clearly. Her face immediately became suspicious. How can you be here? Pingji somewhat unnaturally avoided Qinya's suspicious eyes, cleared her throat, took out her own posture as the master of the house, and said with half a good face, I'm just here to apologize to the princess. Why are you so nervous? He found a reason for himself. Pingjidan calmed down a lot. The people in this courtyard are getting more and more unruly. They didn't ask when they came in, but now they meet you again. When you see my wife, you look up and down. It's true that the upper beam is not straight and the lower beam is crooked. She gave Pingji a bad look and then walked away. She came to the princess to say hello, but she got a cold reception and became angry. She couldn't see another plan. Even so, Qinya's eyelids kept jumping, and she felt uneasy in her heart. She quickly went to the inner room and checked the clips up and down in the room. However, after a long time, she did not find what was missing. Nevertheless, she always felt uneasy in her heart, so she secretly wrote down the matter and planned to report it back to Mo Shanghua later. Yen Zhenchuan's illness made the emperor feel pity for him since he was a child. No matter where he went, he was accompanied by a royal doctor. Now he has such a thing again. As the princess of the mansion, Mo Shanghua naturally wanted to have a look, and Yen Beiqing was invited as soon as possible. As soon as he entered the room, he was full of anger and yelled, As soon as my brother 13 came to my house, he suffered from this disease and that disease again. How did you serve him? Yen Beiqing was seldom angry, but now he was so angry about it that all the people in the room immediately knelt down. Mo Shanghua raised her hand and pressed her eyebrow. She went inside and asked one of the imperial doctors who was dispensing medicine, What's the matter with your highness? I don't think it's a simple disease. It seems that there are some other reasons. The imperial doctor raised his eyes and glanced at Mo Shanghua. His face was slightly unhappy. I will tell you about these things like the prince later. The princess will go out for a while, so as not to affect our diagnosis and treatment. After all, the imperial doctor was from the imperial city. He had heard about Mo Shanghua in the imperial city before, but now he didn't pay attention to her. Chen Kong, who had been waiting for him all the time, came up and said, Princess, it's really not suitable for you to be here. You'd better go out and wait. The 2 imperial doctors are excellent doctors in the imperial city. You can rest assured. There was no anger on the flower face, but his eyes crossed the imperial doctor who was dispensing medicine and looked at Yen Zhenchuan lying on the bed. At that time, Yen Zhenchuan was not in a complete coma. He seemed to have some consciousness, but his face turned from pale to red. His forehead was full of sweat, and his brow was wrinkled. He looked very painful. Next to the 2 maidservants, one was wiping sweat, the other was constantly changing towels. and that another imperial doctor, at the moment, took out the acupuncture bag, as if to give Yan Zhenchuan acupuncture. Mo Shanghua's eyes were fixed on Yan Zhenchuan's flushed cheek. He felt that it was wrong. He went directly over the imperial doctor and picked up Yan Zhenchuan's wrist and put his finger on his wrist. Unexpectedly, her hand was just put on Yan Zhenchuan's wrist, and he grabbed the hand of Mo Shanghua with his backhand. His eyes were closed all the time, and then he opened them again. The originally clear and gentle eyes were now full of a layer of misty color, and the eyes were blurred, as if they had been bewitched. Mo Shanghua was shocked, and subconsciously he wanted to pull out his hand. But Yan Zhenchuan, who was always sick, didn't know where he had the strength to grasp her hand. He couldn't get rid of it. Qian. He looked at the flowers in the street with blurred eyes, whispered gently in his mouth, and his cheeks were burning, more ruddy. He was drugged? Mo Shanghua eyebrow heart mercilessly jumped to jump, turn ahead to see to still hold the imperial doctor of acupuncture and moxibustion bag behind. The imperial doctor's face changed when he was frightened by the accident. He put down the acupuncture bag and went forward to break Yan Zhenchuan's wrist. On the other hand, he said anxiously, "Just now, the imperial Dr. Zhang has made it clear that she doesn't want to bother the princess. Why does the princess want to make trouble here?" Although he was trying to break Yan Zhenchuan's hand, he didn't dare to make any real effort. For fear of hurting him, Yan Zhenchuan's hand still didn't move. "You can't use this brute force." Seeing this, the imperial doctor who had just been dispensing medicine jumped his feet in an instant and scolded, "Quick, stab the acupoints with silver needles. Let your highness sleep for a while." Trouble. Mo Shanghua didn't look like others panic. She soon calmed down as if she were juggling. As soon as she turned her backhand, her green fingers slipped out of Yan Zhenchuan's palm, and her fingertips quickly explored between his wrists, and then she took them back. At that time, Yan Zhenchuan seemed to be stimulated. More and more beads of sweat were on his forehead. When he was just pulled away, he could not help but raise his hand and went to pull his collar. In his mouth, he said vaguely, "Hot, hot." Seeing this, the two old imperial doctors hurriedly pressed Yan Zhenchuan's hand to grasp the collar. But just after pressing this hand, the other hand slipped out again, pulling at his lapel. "I think it's better to let your highness sleep for a while first." The imperial doctor who dispensed the medicine saw this. He took it and just threw it on the table. He was about to come forward. But Mo Shanghua stood in front of him and spoke calmly and quickly, "It's useless to let him faint temporarily. If you don't find a way to crack the poison, your highness's body will be greatly damaged." The doctor's face turned black. "What do you know? You. It's better than going to a doctor in such a hurry." "Don't wait for the imperial doctor to finish." Mo Shanghua directly interrupted his words and looked at Qinya who followed him. "Go to prepare a bucket of cold water, go quickly." "Yes." Qinya nodded and hurriedly trotted out with her skirt. You want your highness to soak in cold water?" Still pressing Yan Zhenchuan's hand and foot's imperial doctor to see, can't help but wonder mouth. Another royal doctor's face suddenly changed and he scolded loudly, "Your highness has always been in bad health. Do you want your highness's life like this? Absolutely not. Get out of here. We'll treat your highness here and he'll be safe." Mo Shanghua looked at the imperial doctor in front of him with no expression and said, "If your method works, it won't be delayed to poison hair. Don't worry, your highness's life is also related to my life. Naturally, I won't let him have an accident in my hands." "Speak wild." The doctor's face was dark, and he didn't plan to give in. "We have been with your highness for many years, and we are most familiar with your highness's physical condition. Your highness's body is weak. If you are soaked in cold water like this, you will definitely die. In addition, you will never be able to endure the recurrence of old diseases." Seeing this, Chen Kong quickly stepped forward and stood in front of the bed. "Princess Yu, these two imperial doctors are all given by the emperor. Their medical skills will never have any problems. I don't need you to worry. Please leave quickly." Seeing all the people in the room face each other coldly, they don't want to treat themselves. The stranger is angry and helpless. The emperor's personal gift doesn't mean there's no mistake. Your Highness's illness can't be delayed. If you continue to do so, you are really delaying your Highness's illness. Chen Kong looked back at Yen Zhenchuan's face and became more and more angry. Drive them all out to the king. As soon as the words fell, Yen Beicheng strode in, surrounded by a group of soldiers. However, his words had been heard for a long time, but none of the soldiers dared to move. If they were the princes next to him, they would be able to win the battle. They can see the prestige of Yen Beicheng. Are you dying? How dare you turn a deaf ear to Wang Ye's words? The flower on the street sees shape, complexion instantly cold come down. The face has no facial expression of scold away. Emo Shanghua's means are clear all over the palace. Her words are better than Yen Beicheng's. When people listen to her, they are excited. They are ordered to escort Chen Kong and others for a while. Are you crazy? Chen Kong and others are angry and anxious, and can't help struggling violently. Emo Shanghua arranges the medicine bag in his hand and opens his mouth without raising his head. Take them all first. All the accompanying bodyguards went with Zhao Wei to suppress the bandits. At present, the rest of Chen Kong are just some servants. Naturally, there is no room for resistance. No matter how unwilling he is still driven out. Without the disturbance of Chen Kong and others, Emo Shanghua can calm down and treat Yen Zhenchuan himself. Qin Ye greets the two boys to move in a bath bucket for bathing, and then sends them to pour the cold water just from the well. You two hold him down first. Emo Shanghua glances at Yen Zhenchuan, who is protecting his clothes on the bed. He orders without raising his head. Then, she looked inside the medicine bag, pinched a small porcelain bottle, crushed all the pills, poured them into the bath bucket, and said, "Take off his clothes and help him into the bucket." The two boys nodded and hurriedly went to solve Yen Zhenchuan's clothes. Qinya was thin-skinned. Then she turned away, but the flowers on the street looked like nothing. Suddenly, a pair of rough hands will be covered on her cheek, her face suddenly black. Behind Yen Beicheng's slightly childish voice then rang out, "Men and women give and receive each other, your things are finished, it's time to go out with the king." Emo Shanghua brushed his hand and shook his head solemnly. I told you before that there is no difference between men and women in the eyes of doctors. Now I am responsible for detoxification for him. If you have time, you might as well go to find out what's going on. He has such dirty things in our house, but you can't afford to eat them. Yen Beicheng glanced at Yen Zhenchuan, who had been mixed into the bath bucket by the young man. He looked away from him uncomfortably. The man under his hand is now in a good mood. He just wants to eat you and me. What can he ask? Between speaking, his Mao Guang can't help but turn from Yen Zhenchuan's naked body again, and suddenly take a step to walk out. I'm going to wait for you outside. Emo Shanghua didn't take it seriously. He turned his eyes to see Yen Zhenchuan's state at this time. Yen Zhenchuan, who had just turned red and kept holding on to his clothes, was sitting quietly in the bucket with his eyes closed. But it didn't last long. After a while, his face turned white again. After a while, his face turned white, covered his chest with one hand, and his eyebrows wrinkled painfully. Quickly lift the people out, scrub them clean, and carefully put them back on the bed. The flower on the road has been expected to be general, not urgent, not slow command way. The boys helped to come forward. Qinya is not shy. Busy also brought cotton cloth to help wipe. Then, Emo Shanghua carefully diagnosed his pulse, and temporarily relieved Yen Zhenchuan's pain by acupuncture, so he sent someone to put Chen Kong and others in. As soon as they came in, they rushed to Yen Zhenchuan. Two imperial doctors feel their pulse in a hurry, while Chen Kong urges them anxiously, "Be more careful. If something happens to your highness, we'll all wait to lose our heads together." These words are impatient words, and they are also meant to be heard by strangers. However, after examining the pulse condition, the two imperial doctors were surprised. One of them, puzzled and surprised, looked at Chen Kong. Poison his highness's body is no different. Emo Shanghua wiped the thin sweat on his forehead and said faintly, I'm just helping him with his old disease. You take care of it all the year round. It's better for you too to prescribe the tonic prescription. After a pause, he looked at Qin Kong with his eyes. Your Highness has had an accident 3 or 4 times in our house. You always have to investigate it clearly. Later, you will come out and explain what happened. With that he stepped out, leaving Qin Kong and others in astonishment. Before reaching the location of Yanbei City, Qinya grabbed her skirt in a hurry. Mo Shanghua squats down and looks back at Qinya in confusion. Qinya pulls the flower on the street and whispers a few words. The faint light in the flower eyes on the street turns slightly, but there has not been much fluctuation on the face. Chen Kong looked at Yen Zhenchuan's situation inside the house and saw that he was okay. Then he went out of the inner room and told the truth about what had just happened outside. Pingji was also brought here soon. My lord, it is this lady who wants to talk to our Highness. I don't know whether it is intentional or unintentional, so she falls on him. His Highness is always in bad health. Only in this way can the old disease recur. As for the flattering drug, I'm afraid it's not related to this lady. What the hell are you talking about, you slave dog? Seeing this, Pingji immediately refuted, I'm the concubine of the Lord. How can I understand the word, women's way, and how can I get those dirty medicines? That's right. I should use them on the Lord. When can I get a foreigner? It's not the words of a young man, but the words of dozens of pairs of eyes. What else can my wife deny? Chen Kong sneered, I remember that when your Highness had the symptoms of poisoning at the beginning, it seemed that when his wife wrapped his Highness's wound with a handkerchief, the handkerchief was stained with his Highness's blood. Afterwards, the handkerchief disappeared. How dare your wife take it out for the imperial doctor to have a test? Pingji's face changed. She held her hands together nervously and looked at Yan Beiqing. My lord, I'm wronged. It's clear that these dog slaves are afraid of taking responsibility. They deliberately put the responsibility on me. You can make decisions for me. Chen Kang's face was suddenly dyed with anger, and he forced his anger to speak. Prince and princess, how dare we deceive so many things we see with our own eyes? Mo Shanghua and Yan Beiqing sat side by side. At this time, hearing the words, he said, Lord, this happened near my yard. My girl also saw it. Let her talk about it. Yan Beiqing nodded, and immediately a servant girl came out and knelt down beside Pingji. The servant girl is responsible for sweeping in the dockyard. When the incident happened, she heard the news and rushed out. She only saw Mrs. Ping scramble up from the ground in a hurry. She didn't know where she had gone, and the rest didn't know. Mo Shanghua nodded slightly and waved her hand to let her go for a while. Lord, everyone has identified it. This matter has been ordered. You can deal with it. Pingji, who had just been killed, changed her normal state. She was shocked and indignant, staring at the flowers on the street. Princess, I've covered this matter for you, and you've fallen down like this. Well, in that case, don't think about it. Then she knelt to the front and said, My lord, I'm really wronged. It's clear that the princess had an old love affair with her 13th Highness in the imperial city. She never forgot that. She wanted to seduce her 13th Highness to continue her relationship. Then she instructed me to find a way to lead her Highness to a hiding place. After giving her convenience, she gave her the magic medicine. She put her hands on Yan Beiqing's knees and said sincerely, You know, Lord, how can ordinary people find the flattering medicine? Except for Dr. Liu, only the princess is proficient in medicine. If you don't believe me, you can go to her hospital and search for the remaining medicine. Wang Yi, I'm forced by her. I'm innocent. The sight of the people in the house immediately gathered on the flower. Yan Beiqing also looked at her, as if waiting for her to explain. The flower on the road droops the mao light to glance at Pingji. The lip cape is slightly cocked up, containing a touch of radiance that seems to smile not to smile. Do you mean this? She took out a small porcelain vase from her sleeve between her green fingers. There were not too many patterns or obvious marks on the bottle, but it was strangely stained with some soil. When Pingji Dun's face changed greatly, he squeezed his hands tightly together and the place where they overlapped became white. How? Emo Shanghua got up slowly, her face was calm, and her lips opened and closed to explain, "This is what Pingji said. It's just that I didn't give it to him," as she said. "Today, she sneaked into my bedroom, buried it in the flower pot in my room, and was knocked down by my maid. Her intention is clearly that she couldn't seduce me when he saw that he was not far away from my courtyard, he decided to blame me." Qinya stepped forward 2 steps, and blessed herself with a salute. She said, "Prince, I went back to get some things from the princess. I met Mrs. Ping in the princess's bedroom. She said at that time that she just came to compensate the princess, but the maidservant has not seen that he is empty-handed, and even he doesn't bring his maid, so he comes to make amends." Okay, what a stranger. Since she didn't intend to leave her away to live, she wanted her to fall into the abyss. Unexpectedly, Pingji, who had been extremely nervous, suddenly calmed down. There was a strange and vicious color at the bottom of her eyes. The princess is really the princess. She had already made a perfect plan. The eyebrows on the street are slightly picked up, and a few microwaves are rippling in the quiet eyes. "What do you mean?" Pingji's lips were slightly checked. Then, she suddenly rushed to Yan Beiqing and said, "My lord, I know that you won't believe what I'm saying now. But if I have evidence, I can't prove myself innocent. It's enough to prove that the princess is immoral. She's a man of snakes and scorpions with different appearances." The next second, Pingji took out a neatly folded paper from her sleeve and unfolded it slowly in front of the crowd. "Did you ever remember Shueji's Wanmin book? Yes, I went to the princess's house, but not to frame it, but to find the princess's evidence. The emperor is not responsible for the people's heart, but always let the maidservant find it. In this way, it can also prove that the detailed words are not false." When Yan Beiqing glanced at the Wanmin book, the dark color at the bottom of his eyes suddenly flashed. He got up and looked at it closely, but he didn't understand it. He said, "A Wanmin book just appeared a few days ago, and now another one comes out. Shirsan also said that it's hard to raise money. Now, in my opinion, it's obviously like Shaoxing who sells paintings on the street. It's very common." Qinya on one side was also surprised. Obviously, she was not aware of it. Seeing that Yan Beiqing said so, she quickly added, "This book of all people is so valuable. How can it be easily obtained? It must be false because it has been true before." Emo Shanghua didn't rush to open her mouth. Instead, she narrowed her eyes slightly and looked at the Wanmin book in Pingji's hand. Pingji's complacency could hardly be concealed. "Lord, what's the credibility of a cheap maidservant's words? Besides, she framed the maidservant and concubine first, not to mention that, but according to the rules, no servant in the house dares to interrupt when the masters speak. In this way, I think the following crimes are worthy of death." Qinya did not react. Emo Shanghua got up and pressed her shoulder. She knelt down and stood in front of her. "Qinya, admit your mistake to the Lord." It is clear that she is disrespectful to Pingji, but she does not let Pingji admit her mistake in Qinya dynasty. Instead, she admits her mistake in Yan Beiqing. In Pingji's eyes, this is clearly hitting her in the face. Just want to be unfair with Yan Beiqing, but didn't expect, he just played sloppy, said, "Go out and kneel, wait for now things, I have free time to punish." Knowing that they were protecting themselves, Qinya quickly closed her mouth, kowtowed and retreated without saying a word. "Lord!" Pingji's face suddenly showed some dissatisfaction, and her eyes were as vicious as vines, which covered her whole eyes. "The book of all people is absolutely true. You see, now it's not the maidservant who is dissatisfied with the princess, but the whole Yuzhou people are dissatisfied with the princess. You don't care about your maidservant and concubine, and you also have to worry about the people in the whole city. This is when you go to the imperial city, you must be the emperor, he must return peace to Yuzhou, and will not easily indulge such poisonous women." Yan Beiqing didn't say anything, but the house suddenly fell into a dead silence. It was so quiet that the needle could be heard. For a long time, the room suddenly rang out a shallow cough, and then he saw that Yen Zhenchuan, who should have been lying in the inner room to rest, came in slowly with the help of his little friend. His steps were flighty, his face was pale, his eyes were as clear and gentle as water, his voice was as elegant and gentle as ever, and he was slightly ill. "Brother, although the maidservant is a servant, what he said is not unreasonable. There was a plague in Anzhou in the previous dynasty, and the local officials tried to seal the city and let the people live and die. In such a great difficulty, the people just gathered together and wrote down the book of the people was sent to the imperial city after going through all kinds of difficulties and dangers. It can be seen that the book of the people is difficult to obtain. Now one copy of the book of the people is rare. How can a second copy come out? Lord." When Pingji heard the speech, she couldn't help jumping in her heart and interrupted in a hurry, "Your Highness 13 is defending the princess so much. It can be seen that their private relationship is not false. I didn't lie before." The cold light suddenly rose in the flower eyes on the street, and the red lips slowly said, "Pingji, don't you want to die? Even your 13 Highnesses dare to slander you." Pingji's face turned white, holding the so-called Wanmin book's hand and shrinking. "I think you know better than me if I'm slandering." Yen Zhenchuan, who had always been gentle, was a little bit heavy at the moment. "The two of us are pure and innocent, and we don't have any private affairs. This lady is still cautious, and now is not the time to say that." With that, he glanced at Chen Kong standing on one side. Chen Kong and look at each other, immediately understand, go forward to Pingji in the hands of Wanmin book took over, presented to Yen Zhenchuan in the hands. Yen Zhenchuan took it and watched it carefully. Juanxiu's eyebrows frowned gently from time to time. "I just said that there must be a fake in the two books of the people, but I'm afraid I can't see it just by my own strength. Brother, let's identify the person who is responsible for the book of the people according to the two books of the people. It's too much trouble to use it." Yen Beicheng took the Wanmin book, as if he really knew it very well. He stroked his chin with one hand and studied it carefully. His brows were very tangled. Seeing this, Yen Zhenchuan said in a warm voice, "Brother, in my opinion, you'd better find the initiator as soon as possible. Only in this way can you convince the public. Can also save her. If not, it proves that this book is true. Would it not tell the world that Princess Yu is a demon girl who harms the country and the people, which not only causes the resistance of the people in the house, but also makes the people dislike her? I'm afraid that if the emperor disposes of such a demon girl, she will not just give up. Therefore, he has tens of millions of selfishness. At this time, he must give up." As for Mo Shanghua, he didn't speak at this time. He was silent and thought about the countermeasures quickly in his mind. She had taken back the Wanmin book from Nanha before. She thought it might be of some use in the future, so she left it. However, what happened yesterday happened. She forgot it for a moment and made it Pingji's weapon. It was really funny and angry. However, what she didn't expect was that Yen Beicheng, who was still seriously studying the Wanmin book last second, suddenly tore down the corner of the paper. He was also very surprised. What's more, he didn't expect that when the paper was short, his strength also loosened. The paper fell on the ground, and then it spontaneously ignited without fire. After a while, it was determined by Pingji that the paper that could kill people would be reduced to ashes. Pingji was stunned for a moment. It took a long time for her to react. Looking at Yen Beicheng, her face turned red instantly, and her eyes were full of anger. "How can this be possible? It must be deceitful. How can you protect that bitch like this?" Mo Shanghua is holding the Wanmin book with only one corner left in his hand, full of innocent faces. "I don't know what's going on. Why do you want to blame me like this? Pingji, how dare you accuse the Lord? Is it not fatal to commit such a crime?" Mo Shanghua clearly sees a flash of sparks in Yen Beicheng's sleeve, but he deliberately staggers his eyes and scolds. Pingji's resentment could not be concealed in any way. She stamped her foot with hatred and said, "Even so, the book of all people is true. Please follow the people's wishes and divorce this poisonous woman. She is not worthy to be my princess of Yuzhou at all." Then she knelt down after lifting her skirt. She glared at the girl behind her. She was so scared that she knelt down and added, "Please, please, obey the people's will." Yen Beiqing touched his nose and said innocently, "All the books of the people are gone. How can I punish him? What's more, I don't know whether the book is true or not. What's more, the princess was married by her father and the emperor himself. It's not the king who said that she could give up. But now there's no evidence. How do you want the king to write?" Pingji has been dizzy with anger. If she doesn't die today, she can only die. Her hands tightly grasp Yen Beiqing's sleeve robe, as if grasping the last straw. The book of the people is clearly true. Even if there is no such book, she has also committed 7 crimes. You must not indulge him like this. The color of flower eyes on the street has been completely Pingji down, just like looking at a clown, staring at her with a smile. "Pingji, which of the things you said has a certificate? Since there is no certificate, where do you have the courage to slander the princess, seduce the outsider and harm the prince here?" From the beginning, Pingji's plan was not formed. If the series of plans were not coherent, even the only evidence could not stand it. It was extremely stupid to take the initiative to send the handle to others. I'm afraid even Yunji would not make such low-level mistakes. With so many charges deducted, Pingji turned pale in a flash, but she didn't want to be defeated. She said fiercely, "You're bullshit. What I said is true. You are a snake and scorpion. I will tear you up even if I fight to death today." Yen Beiqing, who had just turned pale, suddenly became dark. "Pingji, you've done so many things. Do you still want to let Shirsan see jokes now? Somebody take her down." Seeing that a young man had already surrounded her, Pingji was immediately flustered and said, "My lord, I am wronged, I am wronged. It's the slut who framed the concubine." However, those boys didn't give her the chance to explain, so they suppressed her. Pingji is not willing to be so constrained. Her brain has already been filled with despair and fear. She raised her hand and bit a boy's hand. She took the opportunity to struggle out and rushed to the flowers on the street. Yen Zhenxuan and others are here. The flowers on the street are always showing their martial arts. Therefore, Pingji gets it all at once, and they roll together. She pinched the flower's neck and her hair was in a bun. She was half mad and half resentful and said in a shrill voice, "Even if I die, you need to give me a cushion." "No, I can't. How can that be enough?" The viciousness in her eyes almost solidified into substance, and her slender nails scratched over her face, which was as tender and white as the flower on the street. Seeing this, Yen Beiqing immediately clenched his hands into fists. Regardless of this, he went forward to pull Pingji up, forced him apart and threw him aside. Then he hurried to the front of Mo Shanghua, holding her face carefully. "Pingji is too crazy. Rao is Yanbei City fast enough." The white and tender cheek of the flower on the street is still marked with a blood stain, and the blood beads the size of soybeans are pouring out. "Take her down quickly." Yen Zhenxuan wanted to come forward, but seeing that Yen Beiqing was so nervous, he quickly suppressed his worries and turned to the people in the room. With the incident just now, the bodyguards in the house were all on the alert. Many people gathered around them, tied Pingji up and blocked her mouth, and then pulled her down in a hurry. "Brother Huang, Sister Huang, she." Yen Zhenxuan stood by for a while, but he still couldn't hold back his worry. He was about to ask, but before he finished, he saw that Yen Beiqing had directly picked up the flowers on the street and walked out in a hurry. His eager heart was suddenly poured cold water, and he didn't know what it was like. "I'm fine." Along the way, Yen Beiqing clings to Mo Shanghua. It's useless for her to struggle. Until Wu Yuan, he relaxes his strength. Before he can put her on the bed, she jumps out of his arms and speaks faintly. Seeing her indifferent appearance, Yen Beiqing frowned and raised his hand as if he wanted to touch her wound. However, he was afraid of hurting her. For a moment, he had no way to start, but he was confused by the flowers on the street. Looking at her blank appearance, he couldn't help pinching her good cheek on the other side. "Stupid woman, how can you not defend yourself in that situation? If she's crazy and pulls off her hairpin to stab you, Do you want to be obedient? Emo Shanghua blinked her eyes, her long eyelashes stirred up like wings. So many people from the Imperial City are staring at me, can I slack off? What's more, there are so many people here, how can they all sit back and ignore me? Anyway, I have nothing to do. It's Pingji. Originally, there might be a way to live, but now I'm afraid the only way to live is gone. If you dare to hurt the woman of the king, it's not too much to split up. Mentioned here, Yan Beicheng's originally quiet eyes were suddenly dyed with some violent color, and the bottom of his eyes was dark. Emo Shanghua's heart warmed, and the corner of his lips could not help but gently hook. Unexpectedly, it affected the wound on his cheek. Suddenly, another blood bead came out, dripping on the back of Yan Beicheng's hand, like hot molten iron, pulling his thoughts back. What's the matter? Why is it still dripping blood? It's just a scratch. Normally, it should scab soon. But when the wound reached the cheek of Emo Shanghua, not only it didn't scab, it was still bleeding. Yan Beicheng was shocked. Emo Shanghua raised her hand and touched the wound on her cheek. Looking at the scarlet color on her fingertips, she didn't touch her face too much. Pingji's nails are usually well maintained, and she often uses danku to dye her fingers, so it's not easy to heal the wound naturally. But you just don't have to worry. I'm a doctor myself. How can I hurt myself? With that, she went around Yan Beicheng, took out a wooden box from the small table at the head of the bed, took out 2 small porcelain boxes, and sat down in front of the dressing mirror. In one of the porcelain boxes, she made a disinfectant cotton, with cotton wadding and purified spirits. A small wooden tweezers was also stored in the box. She took a piece of disinfectant cotton out of the tweezers and wiped the wound quietly against the blurred bronze mirror. This bronze mirror is not as clear as the current mercury mirror. It can only barely see a fuzzy figure. Therefore, she wiped it with a little effort, and she accidentally painted it in the wrong place several times. When Yan Beicheng saw this, he took the forceps in her hand and was about to help her wipe the wound. The strong smell of wine at the tip of his nose made him move. He could not help but put his strange cotton wadding to the tip of his nose and sniffed it. The original strong smell of wine suddenly became more and more pungent. Although he was strange in his heart, when he smelled the pungent taste of wine, his eyebrows suddenly frowned deeply, and his hands also stopped. Did you soak it with strong liquor? If you use this, isn't it extremely painful? But just now, he saw that she did not say a word, as if the whole body of meat is not her own. Such a shallow wound, where can it hurt? Emo Shanghua gently shakes his head. Seeing his ink, he raises his hand to take back the tweezers and wipe it by himself. Yen North City big hand toward the side to hide, then easily evaded her hand. No, you are so cruel to yourself, or this king to help you. After a pause, he seemed to think of something. He fixed his eyes on the flower's delicate cheek. If it hurts, just shout it out. No one will laugh at you. Shout it out? The flower on the street is slightly stunned. She has long been used to the days when she has all the pain to resist. When did she cry out because of this little injury? Once upon a time, others would only let her endure. No one would ever say that to herself. Thinking of this, her deep and calm eyes can't help rolling up. Her eyes can't help sticking to Yan Beicheng, who is helping him clean up the wound, and her heart seems to be beating up with great concentration. Does it hurt? She left God, until Yan Beicheng put down the tweezers in his hand, asked softly. She was in a trance, busy drooping her eyes, wanted to shake her head to show no pain, but thought about it, or gently nodded. There is some pain. That's right. The pain has to be said. Yan Beicheng nodded with satisfaction, picked up another porcelain box, opened it, looked at the paste inside, and said, "Is this the way to smear the wound?" Emo Shanghua hasn't recovered from the palpitation of just now, so she only slightly lowers her jaw, droops her eyes, and doesn't know what she is thinking. Yan Beicheng gently drew the ointment with his fingertips and gently smeared it on his careful cheek, just like a craftsman who was carefully carving. He was afraid that if he used more effort, his pain would be aggravated. A man who is usually injured is just bandaged at will and doesn't pay much attention to her. Now, he is so careful and solemn to her. How can he not let the stranger be moved? Yen Beiqing himself didn't care. When he helped Emo Hua Daobit, he found the seat and sat down opposite her. He took the small box full of disinfectant cotton and studied it with great seriousness. How strange are the things you use and your usual healing methods. He remembers that the result of previous investigation showed that she was only the daughter of a prostitute who was born in a month. She had been raised in the boudoir of the imperial city in the name of Prime Minister. There was no adventure. How did she learn such superb medical skills? When asked about this, Emo Shanghua came back to her senses. She took the porcelain box in Yen Beiqing's hand, sealed the lid and put it away again. She said, "What do you think is the use of so many medical skills piled up in my room? As for these novel things, they are just developed for the convenience of treatment. These are in the modern medical theory," she naturally cannot say, so she can only find an excuse to prevaricate in the past. Fortunately, she was indifferent to everything. Now when she told a lie, her face was not red and her heart was not beating. When she thought about it, she pretended to be casual and asked, "Yes, good. How could the Book of the Peoples be on fire out of thin air? Who is Yen Beiqing? Why can't she see her little circus?" But when she doesn't want to say it, she just doesn't know. She takes out 2 pieces of flint from her sleeve with a smile. However, he just showed the flower for a moment, then he quickly put it away again and said seriously, "It's a natural disaster. God wants you to be my princess all the time. It's fate. You see, our fate is so deep." Then he took the corner of his lip and began to smile, and his eyebrows and eyes bent. The corner of the flower's lips on the street also can't help but gently curl up. But in his hand, he can't help but push him toward the other side. He gets up and puts the wooden box back beside the bed. "It's clearly you who made the ghost, which means it's destiny." "Nonsense, it's destiny," Yen Beiqing solemnly denied, just like a follower, following behind her. "However, I'm curious about where the Book of Peoples came from. As she said, she did find it in my room, but it should have been found inadvertently when she deliberately framed it." Emo Shanghua smell speech, also don't hide meaning, then explain truthfully, "This is the previous Snow Ji repeatedly said that one. Although I don't know how Xueji got the Wanmin book, she had read it carefully and it was true." Yen Beiqing's eyes were a little deep, and his smile was a little light. The Book of the People that asked the emperor to allocate funds to recruit soldiers as soon as possible should be fake. Emo Shanghua nodded, and simply told the whole story. "I have already understood their plan, so I forged a fake Book of the People in advance, and then checked the identity of Xueji by the way. Unfortunately, my current manpower is limited, so I can't find the real identity of Xueji." After a pause, she glanced at Yen Beiqing suspiciously. "Why did you suddenly ask in such detail? Didn't you really take the Book of the People as true and submit it? What's in your head every day? How could I be so stupid?" Yen Beiqing raised his hand and pinched the cheek of Emo Shanghua. He felt helpless and funny. The flower on the street pushes away his salty pig hand, showing a frown, a disgruntled look. However, the more Yen Beiqing saw her appearance, the more he liked her. He was about to raise his hand and pinch it, but he thought of something. His outstretched hand stopped again, and his eyes darkened. "Now that it's over, why do you want to keep the Book of the People? If not, you won't have something to do with it today." Does she still want to run away from him one day? At the thought of this possibility, he could not help slowly tightening his big hand and clenching it into a fist. Nature is in case of emergency. Emo Shanghua didn't think much, just casually returned a sentence, didn't explain carefully, naturally also didn't notice Yen Beiqing gradually dark down eyes color. Silence for a long time, his thin lips opened, eyes a dark color. "You still want to leave me?" Emo Shanghua was stunned. He didn't seem to expect that he would ask such a question. No matter how dull he was, he knew that he was in a bad mood now. He had already reached the throat of "nature is not," and immediately swallowed it back. Mao Guang glanced at the palm of his clenched fist, pondered for a moment, and then said, "This matter is after my careful consideration. I just decided to stay." Seeing Yan Beiqing's dark and deep eyes, she continued, "Although the current situation is still calm, you and I will inevitably get involved in some disputes in the future. If they borrow me to make a fuss and force you to do nothing, then I can use this to make peace with you, so that they will not find the reason why you are wrong." These words were what she had considered before, so her face was still the same at this time, and her eyes did not dodge. Yan Beiqing looked at her eyes, which were also deep and dark, but shining. All the doubts and displeasure in his heart immediately dissipated, and his hands gently put on her shoulder. "But have you ever thought that if this book of the people came out, you would put yourself in a dangerous place?" In his burning eyes, Emo Shanghua slowly shook his head. "Since I dare to do it, naturally I have a certain degree of assurance." After a pause, a layer of watercolor suddenly appeared in her quiet eyes, and her indifferent face seemed to melt down. "Besides, you should try your best to protect me." Before she had time to say the word "ba," she was blocked by Yan Beiqing. Her brain, which was still clear and rational, was blank. She opened her eyes and looked at the enlarged handsome face in front of her eyes. But before he could react, Yan Beiqing left her lip again, only to kiss her gently, without too much invasion. "You don't have to be so suspicious. You are the princess I married and my wife. I will protect you." He gently took the flowers in his arms and spoke solemnly and seriously. Emo Shanghua was in a trance and stupefied. It took a long time for her to react. Her white cheeks turned red and she couldn't say a word of shame. Even so, she thought about it again and put her hand on Yan Beiqing's thin waist to give her a response. Yan Beiqing also held her tighter. In a brothel in the imperial city thousands of miles away, Yan Emo sat down in his bedroom and impatiently said to the newly promoted bodyguard, "Haven't you arrived yet? Report back to your highness. The imperial city is full of troubles recently. It's hard for girls to come out, but they should be here soon." The bodyguard knew that his master had been in a bad mood recently. He thought it over and over again and said a lot in an attempt to calm him down. Sure enough, Yanimoli didn't ask any more, but the gloomy color between his eyebrows couldn't go away anyway. He had originally returned to the city to be granted meritorious service, but before he came to the imperial city, the criminals were robbed under his eyes. When the ministers who looked down upon him in the court saw this, they all fell down on the ground and took a fierce part in his book. As a result, although he had the name of King Ling, he did not even have a proper fiefdom. The emperor still did not give up his name even under the banner of his mother's wife. What's the difference between him building and living in the palace? In particular, the emperor never expressed half dissatisfaction with him on the surface. On the surface, he was still in favor of him, but it had greatly hindered his plan. In this way, how can he be satisfied? Just as he was thinking, he heard the bodyguard standing quietly suddenly open and interrupt his thought. "Your Highness, she's coming. You go out." Yan Mo Li's eyebrows were gloomy, and his face was as usual. He could not see his happiness and anger. "Your Highness." Usually in front of people very soft female voice, at the moment in front of Yan Mo Li, can't help but die a bit flattery. Such a voice, coupled with his extremely graceful and slender figure, only made people feel pity for him. Unfortunately, Yan Moli nodded his head slightly, which was regarded as a response. Lu Qianqian looked at Yan Moli, who was full and handsome in front of him. His ruddy lips could not help but gently remind him, "Your Highness, I heard that you are in a bad mood recently. Why don't I have a drink with you?" Then, without waiting for Yan Mo to speak, she had already stepped to the table, picked up the wine pot and filled the wine cup in front of him. When she changed it, she just poured a cup of tea. Yan Mo Li eyebrow tip tiny pick on the face shows satisfied color. "You still know your identity." Lu Qian smile, only took the cup in front of him, did not dare to sit with him. "If you drink wine, you will be infected with the smell of wine. I am a prime minister, usually not out of the gate, where to drink. It's natural not to be exposed. If you come out too long, I'm afraid you can't hide it in the mansion. Don't say it's useless. Yen Mo Li nodded slightly, did not pick up the wine cup, directly explained his intention. Jing Zhaoyin connived his son to rob people's daughter, to seize the land, you should know. Lu Qian skillfully nodded, has shown that he knows. Yen Mo Li said, my father doesn't blame me for what happened before. He just says that his merits and demerits are equal, but he is dissatisfied with me at the bottom of his heart. I need to make some achievements to make a compromise. I mention it myself and I'm afraid that my father will suspect me. You can think of some ways to mention it with the Prime Minister. In fact, if it's just such a small matter, it's not worth Yen Mo Li's calling Lu Qianqian to try to get the Prime Minister to speak. It's just that Jing Zhaoyin is not an ordinary poor man's younger brother. He was originally from a scholar family, and his father was Lord An, who had made great achievements in the war. There are many scholar families involved behind him. No one dares to offend him to manage this matter. Therefore, this matter has been very noisy young, but no one dares to interfere at will. Now, as long as he broke the thorny case, the emperor would pay more attention to him. Your Highness, I will take it as an imperial edict, and I will let him do it. With a soft smile, Lu Qian's eyes turned light. Your Highness has outstanding ability. I don't think I'll mention it. My father will make a decision in his heart. Yen Mo Li didn't look at him. Hang Mao to carry that wine cup, Light Wei, you should go back. Lu Qianqian smells speech, pink lips light open a few minutes, but nothing said, a pair of words and stop appearance. Yen Mo Li noticed this, and then he cast his eyes. When Lu Qianqian saw him looking over, he hesitated for a while and said carefully, Your Highness, it's not too troublesome for you to always be like this. Why don't you ask the emperor to marry you and me earlier, or let your father support you above board? When speaking, there is no shyness or selfishness on the face. Yen Mo looked at Lu Qianqian's delicate and beautiful face with a smile. For a long time he said, the time has not come. When the time comes, I will propose to the Prime Minister personally and marry you, the Prime Minister's daughter. With that, his lips curved slightly. At present, you just need to stabilize your position in the Prime Minister's office and be a good Prime Minister. Lu Qianqian eyes light across the bottom of some lost color, pursed lips, slightly blessing body. Yes, Qianqian left. With that, she put on her cloak again and covered her cheek with a veil. Then she retreated, and no one noticed. When she retreated, her soft face suddenly changed, and her eyes were full of unwilling color. God knows how much she has paid to marry Yen Mo Li. Now she has the identity to match him, but he refuses to officially propose to marry him. Even in front of others, she shows a look that she is not familiar with. How can she be reconciled? However, although she was unwilling to break Yen Mo Li's plan, she could only follow his instructions. Otherwise, she would have no chance to marry him. Qinya, go and take out some of my private money. You are going to buy some fine rice and flour, and the flour will be sent directly to the kitchen. Tomorrow, you will let them all steam into steamed bread. You are preparing 2 big pots, and you will choose a few people to follow me out of the house tomorrow. Mo Shanghua sits at the table with her chin propped up and orders lightly. When Qinya heard the words, she was confused. Princess, why do you prepare these things? We also need 2 big pots to cook the fine rice, which is just the sum of the top and bottom of the house. Are you going to make porridge? Mo Shanghua's chin-holding hand followed a starting point, with a rare sense of helplessness on her plain and expressionless cheek. I will not do this kind of thing, but the Lord told me yesterday that there were too many people robbed some days ago, and even killed and set fire. Now there are many disaster victims outside the city, so I have to go to make porridge myself. Originally, such a thing should have been ordered by Yen Beiqing, but he would pull out a few rich businessmen to shield the outside world. However, he thought that Mo Shanghua's current wind rating was too bad, so he deliberately wanted her to buy the hearts of Yuzhou. More good deeds are done, and as time goes by, the previous things will disappear. What's more, The previous ones were all rumors and people are all hearsay. Now if they see them with their own eyes, they will believe their own eyes more. There is also the previous Wu Cheng event to pave the way. At this time strike while the iron is naturally the best. Qin Ya Dun began to smile, and her wet eyes bent slightly. It's like this, princess. Look, it's not a hard work, but a good job to buy people's hearts. The Lord is obviously fighting for a good reputation for you. It must be the recent events that make the Lord's heart. That's what it is. Mo Shanghua turned her eyes to other places, holding her chin and fingertips slightly bent up, and poked her delicate jaw. By the way, remember to prepare more rice, enough for 7 days. At that time, General Zhao Wei should come back. When Zhao Wei comes back, it means that the bandits will be pacified. At that time, she is distributing some money to the displaced people so that they can return home, so as not to be in such a panic as now and just surround Yuzhou City. Princess, you are obviously talking about him by Gu. Qin Ya, however, was reluctant to let go. She came over with a face full of gossip. What did the Lord say to you yesterday? Mo Shanghua pushed her back according to her forehead, got up and turned her back to Qin Ya and walked to the other side. The words are more and more. Do you understand what I just ordered? Understand, should not understand, maidservant but all understand. Seeing that she was obviously ashamed, Qin Ya's eyebrows were even more smiling. By the way, princess, I heard that Pingji had been insulting you after she was locked in Beiyuan yesterday. She tried to escape to find the prince. As a result, she was killed by the guards of night patrol. Now she is buried. The shyness between the eyebrows and eyes on the street faded, and her face returned to the usual indifference. Do you remember who she had offended before? Qin Ya frowned and thought about it carefully. She suddenly felt that her palms were sweating. You mean the guards before? God, how dare they do that? Why not? Mo Shanghua was not frightened. Instead, she asked, Pingji committed all kinds of crimes. All of them are capital crimes. Beiyuan is only a temporary place. It must be dealt with formally in a few days. Anyway, it's a death. But the time of death is different. Who will pursue it? Qin Ya raised her hand across the clothes and touched her hair. She felt a thrill. But when she thought about it, she was very happy. She didn't know whether it was to comfort me or to comfort me. But it's also her fault. Princess, you don't have to think about it. The important thing is that at present, there is only one concubine left in the south of the mansion. Recently, she has been seriously ill and can't get out of bed. In the future, no one will be looking for your trouble in King Yu's mansion, and our ears will be clean. Is Nanha ill? Or seriously ill? The top of the eyebrows on the street is slightly raised, showing a bit of surprise. Qin Ya nodded. I was sick before. I heard that the sick man couldn't get out of bed. I also heard this morning. Nanhe is from Yanbei City. He wants to help him finish the task. How can he suddenly get sick now? Is it Yanbei City who wants to make some plans? Thinking of this, her heart was not very quiet. The willow eyebrows had twisted into a ball. Princess, what's the matter with you? Seeing this, Qin Ya couldn't help looking puzzled. That South Side Imperial concubine was also a hypocrite, and she made trouble for you secretly. Now that she is ill, how can you look worried? Mo Shanghua is thinking. She doesn't answer Qin Ya's words. She just shakes her head. Just as he was thinking about it, he saw Qin Lin lift the curtain and walk in. He bent over and saluted. Lord, the people around His 13 Highness are coming. They said that they want you to go and have a look at His 13 Highness's illness. Mo Shanghua's thoughts were pulled back, but the tip of his brow could not help but pick a bit. Isn't there 2 highly skilled imperial doctors around Your Highness 13? I don't know. Qin Lin shook his head, and his face was misty. The people who came here were those who were served by His Royal Highness 13. Princess, how can a slave come back? Mo Shanghua drooped her eyes slightly, pondered for a moment, and then said, Don't reply, Qin Ya. Go and get my medicine bag, let's go. Yes. It's Qin Kong who is in charge of inviting Mo Shanghua. On the way, he is very regular. Without yesterday's sharp attitude, until Yen Zhenxuan's temporary residence, he just stops and suddenly bows to Mo Shanghua. Princess, what happened yesterday was my little impulse. I'm here to make amends for you. I hope you'll forgive me. He is also a delicate person, just like Yen Zhenxuan. He is as gentle and polite as him. Mo Shanghua murmured with admiration in her heart, and her lips were slightly pulled up. There's a reason for this. You are also the protector. I won't blame you. With that, he took Qinya into the inner room. Yen Zhenxuan is still lying on the bed at this time. Her complexion seems to have to turn a little bit. She is a little bit bloodier than yesterday. When she comes in, her gentle eyebrows and eyes are a little softer, which makes people just look at her impetuous heart. Here you are. 13, Your Highness. Mo Shanghua nodded slightly and stood beside his bed. I heard that your health has not improved, but the 2 royal doctors around you have been waiting on you for many years. I think they should know your condition better than me. What she said was only true, and there was no ambiguity, but she made the 2 imperial doctors face a red face. One of them, who had quarreled with the flowers in the street, took the lead and said, "Yesterday was my minister's disrespect. Don't blame the princess." Seeing this, another imperial doctor hastened to make amends. What is this for? The flower-thin eyebrow on the street suddenly closed up again, some confused hope to Yen Zhenxuan. Cough. Yen Zhenxuan clenched his fist slightly, covered his lips and coughed twice. Then he took the corner of his lips and said with a smile, "I let Qin Kong cheat you. Originally, I wanted to invite you, but I wanted them to make amends to you." Just because of it? The brow tip of the flower on the road picked a few minutes slightly, the tiny dew-surprised color. That your body now how? Yen Beiqing shook his head with a smile. Although he was pale, he could not see the pain of being tortured by his illness. I'm old. I just need to raise him for a few days. It's not a problem. After a pause, he glanced at the 2 imperial doctors again. It's a bit abrupt to say, and I don't know if it's sincere enough for you. My stomach is not so narrow. I didn't pay attention to it at the beginning. You can rest assured. Mo Shanghua also followed his eyes and went to the 2 imperial doctors. Please get up, my qualifications are really not enough. I'm a teacher in front of you. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.